So it's Friday. That can only mean one thing, and that is that Eddie Howe has faced the media. Of course, lots to talk about with team news and Tottenham, that huge game on Saturday. But a lot of the focus of the briefing on Joelinton, understandably. He has signed a new long term contract. You don't need me to tell you that. You've all seen that. But still, some interesting snippets to come out from Eddie Howe about that process. The Newcastle boss was first to admit that it had not been straightforward, but he stressed it wasn't because the player didn't want to be here. It wasn't because he didn't love the club, he didn't love the area, he didn't love the fans. It was basically a recognition that it was a pivotal contract for him, a pivotal moment in his career. Joelinton, of course, 27, really coming into his peak now, and we've seen how much Newcastle United have missed him in the middle of the park. I mean, he's a huge player in every sense of the word for the club, really how the team functions, his versatility, his ability to break up play. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, of course. But tying him down really does spare them a big job in the summer, because Newcastle really would have had two options. Would be to try and sell him when he only had 12 months left on his original deal, which really puts him in a weak position, or let his contract run down. I don't think that's ideal for any of the parties involved, because it has an unsettling effect, arguably, on the dressing room. So they don't have to worry about that, of course. Joelinton, now one of the club's top earners. Easy to forget when he arrived. He was a record signing at the time for the club, but his wages they weren't what some of the club's other high earners since the takeover have earned. So it's a recognition really of his importance. And I think what this does this summer is massive for Newcastle, in the sense they don't have to go in trying somehow to find a replacement for a player who's very unique. Eddie Howe's previously called him a prototype. Really, when you think of Joelinton, you know exactly what you're going to get, and there aren't many players who can do that. And if they can, huge fees, and they'll need time to settle, because more likely than not they'll have to look abroad for someone. So I think it spares them a big job in that. But the flip side, of course, is they've got a higher wage bill, and Newcastle's wage bill, for context, last season 8 other teams spent more on wages, and they include Leicester City, who were relegated, and Aston Villa, who finished below Newcastle last season. So every time a player gets a new contract, it does have an effect. And this is a time when the club are really trying to grow revenues. We've seen obviously the Adidas deal, playing Champions League, opening up a fan zone. They're all moves to try and grow revenues, because Newcastle are a long way off the established elite in that sense. So I think it will have an effect this summer in terms of what they can do in other areas. But in a summer where they really have to spread the budget around to strengthen several positions, I think the most important thing was keeping Joelinton. It was a priority, really, because it saves you having to spend money on a lot of money rather on a big midfielder. So they can maybe look at other areas first and foremost. Obviously centre half's one that immediately jumps out for me, a right winger as well, maybe two I'd be looking at for sure. But anyway, before you look ahead to the summer, of course, there's a lot still to play for this season. Taking on Tottenham on Saturday, Spurs going well in fourth, going for the Champions League. Newcastle still in the race for Europe, 7 points from a possible 9 in the previous 3 games, and they'll be full of confidence, a bit of momentum again, playing at St James's. We all know what happened in the last early kickoff at St James's, that incredible game against West Ham, and I think this game has goals all over it. You look at how Spurs play, you look at how Newcastle are playing. I know they have a lot of injuries. Eddie Howe confirming Lewis Hall hasn't trained this week due to a tight quad, but I think Newcastle really will want to attack this game as much as they did last season. Obviously that ended in 6-1. I don't see that happen, certainly not, but I think Spurs offer you a little bit of hope when they're on the road. They've not been necessarily at their very, very best away from home. Newcastle traditionally very strong at home, so I think it could be a really, really interesting game, and it's a huge chance for Newcastle. They could potentially move up to 6th with the win, and I mean, what a boost that would be going into the running.